Welcome to Bespoke Coach Works YouTube channel, part 1 of shaping a custom guard. For those of you that follow along on my social medias will know that I'm building an Auburn Speedster at the moment. I'm recreating the body in aluminium. So at the moment I'm just thumbnail shrinking on the power hammer using 3D printed plastic dies. This helps with marring on the aluminium. So we started off with our paper pattern. It was a rough paper pattern. We just had our proposed highlight lines and our initial shrinks. So that's what I'm going through now, just going through the first shrinks that the paper pattern established for me. After we go through those initial shrinks, we move on to the in-between shrinks. When shrinking on a part like this, you typically will have 3 stages of shrinks. You'll go up close to the highlight line, roughly 19mm. You go in between, and then all the way towards the end. This will sort of give you the peak of your highlight line, the center of your highlight line, and then the very bottom of your highlight line. Checking over on the car now. See what our first round of shrinking was doing, where the shape's at. Giving it a little bit of form over your body. Be a bit of a full body exercise sometimes. Checking back on the car after a small adjustment. Getting ready to move on to the sandbag to put a little bit more crown in the center of the panel. See here, I'm just making the panel a big bag of walnuts. Just raising in that big crown section. In this video you're just going to see the roughing out stage, the shrinking, hammering onto the sandbag. We'll do some forming as well. Just getting the panel to fit roughly. Next video will show you the smoothing out process on the English wheel. Even though you're hitting it with the hammer a lot, you still want to try and keep it as consistent as possible. Checking on the car again. See I've only gone through half of the panel. You want to try not to overstretch the panel too much. Just work along. Make sure you're tracking correctly. You don't want to put too many walnuts and hammer marks into the front section of the panel. Better not have to go back in and redo it. Although there's still a long way to go, you can see that the panel is doing what it needs to be doing, starting to take shape. Back on the bag again, working on the back half now. If you have any questions about anything that you see in these videos, pop them down in the comment section. If you have any feedback, any questions about tooling that I use, where I get it, what's my favorite type of things to use, throw them down in the comments as well. Also head over to our social media channels. Always happy to try and answer questions wherever possible. Follow along with the rest of the build. Back in doing some more shrinking now. Trying to pull that edge around. In this section of the shrinking, you can see that I'll really be pulling down as I'm exiting out of the dies to pull the panel around. Using thumbnail dies. Thumbnail shrinking die is almost like metal forging. So what you're doing as you run it through the machine, you're picking the metal up, and then as you're pulling it back through the machine, you're hammering it back down on itself, so you're actually shrinking it and making it thicker. The process of shrinking is you're shrinking the outer edge, making the outer edge shorter than the inside, which gives you that big massive crown. See, all the highlights are still there. I'm a big proponent of always trying to keep your panel as consistent as possible while you're shaping. You don't want to just go randomly doing things because it just makes the process a whole lot harder. Consistent hammer blows, consistent shrinks. Makes for a lot cleaner panel once you go to smooth it all out. See how much better the panel's fitting now already. That center section there really needs, where I'm feeling just then, really needs to shrink in a little bit more. I'm doing now. Being that it's right in the center of the guard, where I will be doing the weld join, I have to pull that, sort of pull that peak around a little bit. A lot of back and forth in a piece like this. You can see now I'm really pulling my hands down. Trying to radius that edge over. And you can see I'm not going into the full depth either. I'm working towards those outer to the center of the radius and the base of the radius. The center highlight line is already established. A few more sections here that need to be blocked out. Starting to get really close. Constantly checking, using the, you can see I sort of wiggle the panel back and forward. I'm always just trying to use the light around me, trying to use straight objects around me. This helps determine the highlight lines. It's all about just really knowing where you're at. Using your hands as well to feel the panel, see if there's any sections that feel a little bit lower. Using the edge of the bag there just to flare out the edge of the panel. Doing that established a couple of small areas that needed a quick shrink. Fitting on the car again, and you can see how much closer it's starting to get. You can see there as I pull out the edges, the panel curls longitudinally. If you were to hammer in the bag and deepen, it will sort of straighten the panel out. So you sort of will curl the edge over your knee or pull the edges out, and that will sort of curl the panel around front to back. Struggling to sort of pull the aluminium in there, so I use the panel stand here to sort of wrap that tighter radius around. So it's about whatever object you can find. See that top edge there still has too much crown in it, so I'll have to force that the other direction to sort of roll it around a little bit. Same as down there, I'll need a little bit more probably on the panel stand. There we go. Really just forcing those edges around. Try to get the tighter radius. Close down the back half now. See, it's just that top section that just needs to pull around a little bit. Just rocking the panel just to understand what's going on with it there. See, flaring the edges out can't help that a little bit. Aluminium's quite a tough material though, so I wasn't wanting to move too much, so I sort of revert to pulling it over my knee a little bit harder, I think. You can see though, even though I've hammered that a lot of times, all the shape and the highlights still look very consistent. All just comes with practice, but just really paying attention to what you're doing as well. There we are, bend it over the knee. Always helps, and you can see how much better that's starting to fit now. Well, we're coming to the end of this video now, guys. Thanks a lot for watching. Make sure you share, subscribe, and like it. Throw down any comments and feedback that you might have. Head on over to our social media channels and check those out as well. And we'll see you next time. Cheers.